don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. In my heart I have but one desire, and that one is you, no other will. I've lost all ambition.
We're back. Welcome everyone back to Greetings from Beyond Radio. It's been a minute and I apologize, but sorry but not sorry at the same time that we didn't go on air last week. My dog got really sick. And as everyone that owns an animal or a dog, they become part of your family. That's why we call them fur babies. And my dog, after vomiting 12 times, it was time to go to the hospital. And not a human hospital, doggy hospital. And he was in there for a good 3 days, 2 nights. And let's just say that's why Greetings from Beyond Radio was postponed last week. But for the time being, we're back, and we are going to have a very special guest. Okay, let me see if I got the name right. All right, because I've been practicing, and I swear to God, Vicky's looking at me, really funny. She always looks like that. Anyways, whatever. Okay.
I was going to say, are we going right into it? I mean, no foreplay or anything. We're just
what? Okay. There's your foreplay. She always looks at me that way. There you go. All right.
Okay.
Shana Wankel, it will be joining us. I hope I got that right. I've been practicing. I've been walking around the house, and my family's been like, "Oh my God, he's freaking crazy." All he keeps saying is Shana Wankel, Shana Wankel, Shana Wankel. Okay. All right. Whatever. Judge. Okay. So.
By the way, I think they were calling you crazy prior to you doing
it. Yeah. Well, that's what I think about that. So, anyways, so let's go to our usual spiel and then right to our guest. And for those of you joining us for the first time, you can join us on any of these podcast formats. So by all means, make sure that if you can't listen to us on one, you can listen to us in another. And I'm hoping and praying that our great producer has this up and ready to go, because I don't see anything on the screen here. Hi, Jennifer Bailey.
Checking your memory.
Huh?
She's checking your memory. Like the week I had to pull it from memory. She's giving you the test.
Yeah. I could maybe. I don't know, but
I got through the list quite a few.
A little bit, yeah. So for those of you that can only listen to us, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can see us on Facebook, YouTube. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio. You can watch us on Paralanx. But right this time and moment, there's a glitch going on with Paralanx, so don't rely on that too much. Amazon Music, Podcast Index, Samsung Podcast, Listen Notes, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Pandora. And I take a breath. There you go. See, I did all that in one shot. That's freaking awesome. All right, so our special guest is I checked this the other day. We've been friends for a long time. Shana and I have been friends for a while, and it's funny, we talk here and there, but not as much. I knew she was a practicing witch practitioner, whatever the hell you want to call it. Doesn't matter to me. Human being is a human being. Faith is faith. It is what it is. But with no further ado, we're going to have her cover a few things and dispel a lot of myths. Everyone, please welcome to the show, Shana, aka Red Wankel. Huh? Huh? Did I get that right? Did I?
Who
Call
is
me Red.
some technical difficulties just in case. Our producer let us know, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed and put positive energy that we're going to be able to see and hear her.
Yes. I'll even start my incense. There. There it goes. You may see smoke coming through. It's just my incense.
It's not his brain, don't worry.
Oh, shut up. Anyways, so Vicky, go ahead. You asked her the question backstage. Ask her the question now. Let everyone know and welcome everyone here that's listening. Timeless Jewel by Deborah, Bob Burnell, Melinda, Jennifer. Welcome back to the show and help welcome our guest.
Well, like I was saying backstage before we got started, there's a lot of terminology that's thrown around erroneously these days where they take and they'll put in the terms warlock, witch, witchcraft, pagan, Wiccan, all those things, and they seem to think that it all belongs to one person, one belief system. So, could you clarify some of those terminologies? Let's start with what is Wicca and how is that different from witchcraft?
Um, to be honest, whenever I first started researching and asking questions and stuff like that, the way that it was initially explained to me at the beginning, and I just flew with it, was Wicca was not organized religion, but it was as close to a religion. Um, and pagan is like everything else that's not organized. And I was like, sounds good to me. I just didn't want to be in organized religion where everything was scripted, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it, where it felt like um, yeah, church was terrible. And I feel bad for saying that now because it was supposed to be kind of like a family, you know, thing. And, I love my family. So, I love spending time with them. And church just happened to be one of those things, but I never enjoyed it. Even at a young age, it just felt like something that I had to do. And then the older I got, the more questions I had. And, then the paranormal came into play, and then I really had some questions. And, um, and then going, a little further down the road, one of my very dear friends recognized in me what I didn't even know I had myself. I was just kind of took a step back, right? And didn't even know what I wanted to do. But then she recognized um, that I did not belong in organized religion, and I knew that um, she was also a practitioner. So very very hippie, very bohemian, very earth mother, very goddess, type figure, and I felt more comfortable around her, and spending time with her and kind of vibing with her energy than I did with anything or anybody else that I would have found in a church. So um, I did what everybody does, I think, and I got a lot of books and I read a lot of, information about it. And then at the end of the day, my mind was just like, I'm just going to do what I vibe with. So um, a lot of mine is nature based. I will say that. That's where I feel the most empowered. That's where I feel the strongest. That's where the more time I spend outside, um, the more aware, the more alert, the stronger I am. So I know that that's where my energy comes from.
Your friend recognized that in you. Would you say that the longer that a person practices witchcraft, are you able to see those qualities in others who might have that spark? My daughter and I, we went to Salem in 2019, and we were in one of the shops, and we're just randomly standing there, and someone came up to her specifically and said, "You would be a very powerful witch." And he said that, and he just walked off. He wasn't trying to sell anything. He wasn't trying to, and he just said that. So, do you find that you can spot that in people?
As time has gone by, like I don't live in the town that I grew up in. I moved here like 8 years ago, and the people that I'm friends with now, um, I recognize, that in them, and didn't you never really know how to approach somebody, what people are going to think if you do that, and some of them might, be offended by it, but some of them might not, and I didn't really know anybody really that well to be like, oh, you're Wiccan or you're pagan too, and how do you just come up to this unless you're in like an environment like you're in a store, in Salem or like a new age store. I feel super comfortable approaching somebody there because people are there for that usually. But just out in mixed public, you know, I know people can tell that I'm different. I don't exactly blend well around here. Um, but yeah, like one of the ladies I'm friends with here in town, I could tell that she definitely had something going on. And then come to find out later that she's got quite a collection that might say that she is. So, um, but then I think if you could, I don't know, religion is just such a confusing topic for me. I think it should be personal, you know. Um, I think organized religion is a terrible thing. I think everybody should be able to just, do their own thing without somebody telling you that, oh, it has to be this way because of this. I think she believes in God. Um, whatever type of faith that you are, I think it all has a different name. Like Christians would call it God. Some people would call it, the universe and, um, a creator, a source, something that we all come from. Um, I think it's called, you know, everybody calls it something different. It depends on what they believe. But I think at the end of the day, it's, I think we're all trying to get to maybe the same goal, but um, there's just a lot of different options to get there. And nobody's really going to know, all of the answers until
Till
it's
it's
time to
time.
go. And I'm not ready for that yet.
I think what's something I share with you is I myself, when people have asked, what's your religion? I've always said, I don't have a religion. I have a faith. My faith is Christian based, sorry, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But that's been my choice. I don't shove it down people's throats either, and that's what I hate about organized religion. It seems to insist, impose their religion onto other people, and by doing so, they I call it fear mongering, and I also call it a form of prejudice. And when they notice, and it's just not witchcraft. I've seen this with Christian based religions judging Buddhists, judging Native American faith, and many others, even Jewish faith, which ironically Christians came from. And I'm like, what are you doing? I personally find it offensive because the there's a chapter in the Bible that states that Jesus will knock on your door. If you open the door, he'll come in and sup with you, meaning he'll come in and shoot shoot, you know what, with you. If you don't open the door, he moves on to the next one. That's the way. What he means to say is, I'll knock. If you don't answer, hey, that's cool, man. I'll move on to the next one. But nowadays, westernized religion, Christian religion especially, it's in your face and down your throat. And I've seen a lot of people, you know, within the, I don't know what to call it, the witch community or the pagan community or whatever, getting upset over a lot of misconceptions out there. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I get upset myself too when it comes to people saying all you Christians are the same. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Do I look like an evangelical? Do I look like I'm wearing a toupee that's off to the side? And, you know, asking you to send me hundreds of thousands of dollars so that I can have a mansion? No. Your way of practicing your faith seems to me over the years, you're one of those, you like to be solitary, you know, a solitary type of witch.
No, for
You would
sure.
prefer to be in a little cottage in the forest, left the hell alone with nature. Am I correct about that?
That is, if there was a way for me to make a living from the forest in a little hut with like this enchanted labyrinth where fairies let me know if someone's coming so I can fire up my cauldron because they didn't announce themselves, um, I would just give up society as a whole completely. Um, Eventually, I'd like to see that happen. Eventually, I'd like to just have, something just out of the way, away from everybody. Um, just, yeah. I mean, I have my little, like, my group of friends, that I love hanging out with in type of environment. We're kind of on the same page. All of us, like to be near water, um, out in nature, trees, just, breathing clean, hopefully, air. Um, I've noticed that the longer I spend, out in nature, it kind of makes me feel like Snow White a little bit because animals start coming up and stuff like that. And it's, um, maybe they can, sense it too. Who knows? I go inside the mind of an animal, but my I can sure relate, kind of jealous.
I'm raising my hand because Vicky had to teach the whole Legion of Exorcists to do this. So uh, I totally vibed with what you said there. You prefer to be close to water. Me being of a water sign, I vibe very when I go to meditate, pray, do whatever, release all the negative energy I've collected. Being empathic as well doesn't help the situation. I have to be in front of a body of water. And do you feel that it's easier for you to ground yourself that way, to reflect upon a body of water?
I'm a fire sign,
And
and
ironically, you like water.
it's funny because I cannot swim. Um, I've had was I've had a lot of past life dreams. I That's what I'm calling them. They're so real. Could they be just a dream or whatever? Um, After having them and writing them all down and like really looking at them, a lot of it just made a lot of sense. But in a lot of these dreams, I was drowned for, tossed in a well to drown, or I've been tossed in a lot of wells to drown for performing witchcraft way back, going way back, right? And so, I've always kind of, as time went on, and after that stuff started happening, and I've never been able to swim. I've never, wanted, never tried. Maybe it's because of that. Maybe it's fine. Maybe that's why I'm afraid to be in the water. Um, but I need to be near water. So, and
Do you feel
actually, um, the more that I get involved in the paranormal and stuff like that, it's trickling water that helps me hear voices better.
Okay.
It provides the white noise.
It's kind of like if I can be near a slow trickling fountain, that's like the best because, and then all of a sudden I start hearing things out loud, and then um, start recording. Am I really hearing that? Because it sounds really clear. Sometimes like conversations and stuff like that, and then I started recording it and stuff like that, and I was hearing that in real time. And sometimes it wasn't just me, that was hearing it, and I was like, really, is that the secret, right? So water is white noise is the best white noise for me. It's like at the very top of things that you can use as white noise. Regular white noise, no, that doesn't really help me. Like noise from, I know a lot of people use spirit boxes when they investigate. I cannot use those. It's too distracting and too loud. If I were a spirit, I'd be walking in the other direction, honestly. I know I'm not the popular opinion, and I'm okay with that. But
no, they're very annoying too when you have 3 hours worth of audio to review and you have to keep hearing.
No judging here. We're not judging. If that bugs you,
yeah, we're not judging. Look, I'm not judging.
No. I'm saying no one's judging here. If that's how you are, so be it. There's nothing wrong with that. Be yourself. We're all ourselves here. Even everyone in the group, by the way, they've all been like, we have Jennifer Bailey saying, "Where do I resign from society? I'll go with you." You already got someone willing to go with you, but I'm sorry, Jennifer, she doesn't want anyone to go with her.
I know, kind of defeats the purpose of solitude if you bring a friend.
Yeah, it does. Jen, she says, I'm a water sign, but I prefer nature. Well, she prefers nature, but she also prefers there to be like a creek nearby, so she does like water. And
I'm a fire sign, and I like to know that there's water somewhere within a driving distance. I don't have to live next to it, but I have to know I can get to it. But my favorite element, I love wind. There's nothing I like better than it being cool enough to open the windows and have the wind flying through my house. So I got two things that should be extinguishing my fire Leo flame, and they still don't. It's still burn on.
I'm seeing a correlation here through the chat, and it's stating Timeless Jewel by Deborah. My meditation spot is by water as well. But and then Bob Burnell says I'm a Scorpio, but he prefers the mountains and forest. Melinda says earth sign, but she prefers the ocean. So what does that mean? I mean, is it okay? Is the rising planet, different from what their sign actually is? Because I'm a Scorpio too. I'm a water sign, but I prefer water and ocean, but I can chill just as nicely in a mountain.
Well, I want to go back and look at what my shaman has always said. She's a neutral shaman. So her job on this earth is to bring the elements together in harmony to make sure that an area has an equal amount. So maybe those of us like look at what I said about being a fire sign, but I like wind and the water, which would actually help distinguish or balance you out. So I think we crave things that are going to balance our energies so that we are at one with the earth. That's just my take on it.
All right. So, Shana, here's a question for you. The pentacle. What do the points mean? What do the points in the pentacle stand for to you?
Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit.
Okay. So right there you go. And I guess we have a little bit of witch in all of us, right? I've always called Jen a natural witch. She just has this draw to crystals and sage and using Palo Santo, the full moon, collecting rainwater to cleanse her stones, all that stuff. And do as you will. I'm not going to stop you. how do you? I mean, when you're out in the forest, and I'm sure I saw you had a little retreat there for a little while in your pics, and you were, yeah, I saw that smile on your face too, and you were so happy and content. So what was it about that little retreat you went to that really made you happy?
Um, there's a handful of spots. I'm in a lot of cemeteries also. Um, my father, who doesn't follow my path, but he loves to be outside in nature, and it's kind of a bonding experience for us, and we call it cemetery crawls, and we just go find as many cemeteries as we can find. I think we both like them for different reasons, but I can tell that he loves being out in nature too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but cemeteries are a whole other breed of energy for me. Like, I don't think people hang out with their remains, but there's an awful lot of activity and energy in cemeteries for me, and I'm sure for others, too. Um, but then, if there's this one cemetery, it's in the county I grew up in. It's high up on a hill, and you can see water from on top, and it's an amazing spot. Just because it's up away from everything, it's by the water, um, and then yeah, I just whenever I go outside, it's either a cemetery or it has to be near water, or if I can have both, that's great. Um, there was a way to bring water with me, you know, I would. Um, yeah, yeah, that's just outside. That's where I'm the happiest. Even though the air quality is not so clean anymore and it's so hot outside. Um, the only time I don't like to be outside is winter. I am not a winter person at all. There is nothing about winter I enjoy. So whenever springtime rolls around, uh, it's a very joyous occasion for me. Like I don't know what other practicing, like I, pay attention to the different holidays, and I might, you know, do a little, spell work and stuff like that. Um, but if I can't be outside where everything is green and when everything's like not frozen over, I know it's all about intent and stuff like that, but I just can't vibe with winter, not at all. I'm just kind of like out of sorts during the colder months, honestly, except for fall. I love fall. Can't do winter.
I think it's safe to say I'm not a winter person. I'm a Florida person. And I spend my spring and summer in Miami, Florida. And then I end up venturing back up to Utah late September, early October ish, because I need to spend time with Jen and our daughter. And um, I don't mind the fall weather. Fall's cool. I love the colors. It's cold, but it's not freezing cold. There's no snow on the ground. There's a nice breeze. Um, and they actually celebrate Halloween up there. Down here in Miami, it's too damn hot to wear a costume and go trick or treating. You're gonna have a heat stroke for sure. So it's funny, when I finally started making my way up there, like what, 7 years, 6 years ago, and I noticed that they still celebrated Halloween. I was like, why are people dressing up and going to houses and asking for candy? Because I haven't seen that here in at least 16 years.
I'm
Seriously.
only an hour north of you, and my neighborhood is the biggest trick or treating neighborhood you've ever come across. I go through $300 worth of candy, no lie. So you need to just take, if you're down here in October, take that hour trip, and I'll show you what Halloween looks like.
I'm not going to be here. It
Well, I
is
don't
what
know
it
what's
is.
wrong with your neighborhood.
My neighborhood, it's Miami. There's a bunch of Cubans that live here, and they don't celebrate Halloween because they think that witches poison the candy. All right, I wonder where they got that from. Okay, so let's start breaking the yolk here a little bit and make a cake. Um, this misconception, where do you feel that this has come from Christian religion, or has it come from just a plethora of different religions or people that just fear something they don't understand? Oh, shut up, Eileen.
I think it's
Sorry, not at you, Eileen.
yeah. I think it's. I know. Well, I know it's both. Um, you know, in church, if you believe in anything, any possibility of any other type of energy at all, ever, um, everything else is evil.
Right.
There's only, you know, now I've never really, looked at it that way. I mean, there's so many different paths. There's so many different, religions out there. There's so many different, journeys to take. But at the end of the day, let's say, to do better, to be better, to, there's a goal, that I think that everybody is aiming for. And then there's just a lot of different ways to get there. Um, I don't judge, if you are an atheist, if you're, Christian, if you're, um, you know, if you're a Satanist, I don't care. I don't care what you are. I care about how you treat me, and I care about, you know, I care about who you are as a person. So, there are a lot of other things about a person other than, what they believe in. So, at the end of the day, if you're nice, if you're a nice person, I don't care. But just I'm not going to judge you for what you believe in if you don't judge me for what I believe in. Here's a story.
Okay.
Um, so I work. I'm a shift at a gas station right now, and so I see and talk to. And I work midnights, so you can imagine the type of clientele that I usually get. And, I mean, yeah, but I still show up, right? So um, one night, this Indian guy came in, and he
Okay,
asked to use the restroom.
wait. Define Indian. Hindu Indian or Native American Indian?
Hindu.
Okay.
Um, and he came in, and I made some fresh coffee for him because it was about that time, and I was wearing not this necklace, but I have like a tree of life necklace, right? And I wear it all the time. Um, and so I saw him looking at it, and he asked me, um, what my necklace meant. I was like, tree of life. He goes, and then he asked me if I believe in God. Luckily, I had some downtime because we ended up talking for like 30 minutes, right? Um, and then, so then this sparked a healthy adult, you know, religion versus belief
Interaction.
versus belief, but then I told him, what I believed and why I believed it and some of the questions that I had. And then he, you know, gave some, valid points. So we each, contributed. And then at the end of it, he just thanked me for, being him. He says this where the first thing that people do is look for exits and, just in case. And, that thought didn't even, cross my mind. And so he, and then so he, we, shook hands and then he left. Well, then he came back and he goes, I was like, well, that went well. That was very refreshing. And then he came back And he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, um, "Do you have kids?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. They're not really kids, they're grown. And he goes, "Are you married?" I was like,
Oh, that's one of those
I
conversations.
don't know why I'm starting that. No, I was like, and then he goes, "No, I was just," anyway, he goes, "Do you accept tips here?" I was like, um, that's, you don't have to tip me, for talking to you, for being that. He goes, "Well, I understand that." He goes, "But I'd like to, leave you a little something." And then I was like, "Look, I'm not gonna tell you no, but I'm just gonna tell you don't have to do that. And so, if you do that, I will pay it." And so he did. Now, he had some money, and it looked like fairly decent stack, but it was mostly ones. From what I could see, it looked like ones. And then he gave it to me, and then he took off. Well, and like got in his car and left. So whenever I took the money over and opened it up, there was $140 in there. So he had, and a note. And so he had gone out to his car and wrote a note, "Thank you for being nice." And I was like, "Man, I'm glad I was nice to that guy." But that's just the thing. It's a terrible thing to judge somebody. Like, I knew that his faith was going to be totally different than mine. I could tell just by the way he was, seemed to be fixated on my necklace, and just the line of questioning and stuff like that he was asking me and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he's still a human. I think one of the misconceptions about is that I think people are Um, I think people watch a lot of TV, a lot of movies, a lot of, which witchcraft is supposed to be this, terrible thing. Witches don't believe in God, witches don't believe in, all that stuff. So and we're supposed to be these like terrible people, you know, um, not wanting to do, good things, good deeds, not wanting to be good to people. And sometimes it feels that way. um, I can tell, what like people that know me now and know the my beliefs, stuff like that, and I can tell that they definitely, react towards me differently and stuff like that. And I'm still the same person. There's no reason to be that way. I'm still the same person they knew back then. Um, I just kind of broadened my horizons a little bit, and I think it's a lot of it is a fear of the unknown. Because if you are, pagan, or if you're Wiccan, or if you're anything other than Christian, then there's going to be, that thought in the back of your mind, for a lot of them, I assume, where if I don't believe in God, then obviously I'm not going to end up, in a good place. So, and I just don't have that fear.
We
I,
have a question
I'm a good.
from the chat, and I'm gonna put it on the screen. Vicky, if you want to read it out loud, go right ahead.
Witchcraft can be a terrible thing, though, can't it? So I guess Bob is questioning. We can obviously tell what your beliefs are, that you are a good person. But as we know, there's very few absolutes in the world. So I guess he's questioning, is there bad witchcraft?
Is there what? Repeat that.
Bad witchcraft. He's saying witchcraft can be a terrible thing, though, can it?
Um, with I think it's all about intent. If you're selfish with it, if you're wanting to perform spells that are intended to harm somebody, that I would consider. But not everybody believes in, what you reap, you sow, or whatever you put out comes back on you times three. Not everybody believes in karma. Everybody believes in something different. There's so many different kinds out there. I personally, I know that there are some people out there that maybe I would say that I would, if that happened to them, it would be nice for, karma to give them a little heads up and say, hey, we can't behave this way. You can't behave badly and not expect to have consequences. There has to be a lesson somewhere along the way.
Well,
And usually what I say is, if I, choose to get involved and put my energy and my intent out there to make that person aware, I usually just ask the universe to give all parties involved exactly what they deserve, whether it's good or bad. That way, if the universe decides that something good happens to somebody, then that person earned that. If the universe decides that something bad happens to somebody, then I feel like, that's the lesson that needed to be learned. Um, you know, you, but I don't make that decision though. I don't feel like it's my right to do that. So,
I think
at
if
the end of the
anything,
day,
what Bob meant by his question, and I'm going to try to interpret what he meant. Um, there, I think every religious belief has a yin and a yang. They have a good and a bad. And I think what he meant was, just as there are good intended witches like yourself, are there not black magic practicing witches out there as well? Um, I can say the same thing about my faith. There's good Christians out there that don't judge. And then there's those evangelicals that, go on YouTube and have millions of followers saying that they're going to burn witches on Halloween. And
right?
that autism is demonic possession. And that pisses me the hell off, because that to me is backwoods BS at its best. Someone that's never studied, and they're fear mongering. Now, would you say, and I'm clarifying, I hope, okay, that's exactly what I meant. Thanks, Rich. That's what Bob meant. So, yes, Bob, you are correct. Shana here is one of the best people I've had the pleasure of talking to and on online, back and forth. I love her to death. And I don't care that she's a witch. I don't care if she was like worshiping a rock. I could give three craps. The thing is that she's a good person. Keyword person, human being. You cut her, she bleeds red. So do I. So does Vicky. So does Jen behind the screen right now. So do you. That's the most important thing here. But she is correct about the intent. But the question he was asking, are there or are there not witches that practice black magic? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's out there.
It's out there. And
You
that
can't
in
have
its
dark.
exactly, you can't have dark without light. There, you can't have a yin without a yang, and that's God's honest truth. That it is what it is. Vicky, your thoughts on this?
Sorry, my unmute wouldn't go off. I think with every single thing in life, as I've said many times on the show, there's no absolutes. So you're always going to have a group of people, whether you call it a religion, whether you call it a group, or whatever you want to call it, you're always going to have people who will take things to a darker side. That's unfortunately that's the way it is. But I think it's so important for people to keep an open mind. And if there's a group that you have traditionally thought of a certain way, go out, talk to someone who actually practices or participates in that particular group. You get to know them
Right.
as a person. That's the important thing. Stop reading all this stuff that you can go and people can Google as, what do I call it? Dumbass.com, and go and find all this misinformation, talk to someone. Because people love to share what they believe in. People love to give information. And just realize in every single solitary group, you're always going to have someone that's doing something probably a little darker than the next person.
To the counter, just to counter that, a lot of those dumbassery people out there do talk to people. They don't Google. They go and they talk to people they know.
Yeah,
Or
other
groups of
dumbasses. Yeah.
okay, well, it is what it is. Groups of people underneath a tent, a revival tent, that are sheep, and they repeat the same verbiage back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And oftentimes it's not Google, it's not the internet, it's not social media, it's dumb people converging with dumb people. And then it grows and it grows and it grows. And that is the reality of this all. It's not a matter of absolute. I can absolutely guarantee you, though, that is what happens most of the time, because like-minded, they flock together oftentimes and they stick together. And we've seen that phenomenon in another arena. I'm not going to go there because I promised this show would never go there. And people just and eat up all the poop. And it is what it is. So, Shana, I'm sorry, Shana's.
But by the same means, you also can't be exclusive when you talk about the people under the tent. There are some decent people under that tent as well, who may have different views. And you know what? They don't always stay under that tent. They may choose to take a different path at some point. So
those are the smart ones.
We have to make sure that we don't do absolutes in any arena.
All right. Anyways, I'm done with the absolutes, though, because the thing is if they congregate and they keep going over and over and over and over again until one of them has an epiphany and they realize, I don't think this is for me, and they walk away and they find something else, okay, then it ceases to be an absolute.
Well, my friend had an epiphany when he was at one of those types of churches, and everybody was told to pray. And they said, close your eyes and we're going to pray. And whoever has not given their tithes, the way they're supposed to the Lord, I just want you to raise your hand. Nobody's going to judge you. Raise your hand and just put your hand to the Lord and say that you haven't given all that you can. Well, my friend decided to open his eyes, and he saw the deacons in the front of the church writing the names of the people whose hands were raised. So sometimes you have right there in your face epiphanies that you need to follow a different path. And following your own path, guess what? It's your path.
Exactly. I agree.
And that's what's important, is that you have to live your own authentic life.
All right,
and who cares what people think?
So back to our guest. What do you think, Shana?
Technical difficulties.
Well, yeah. Your opinion when it comes to this back and forth, because this has been going on forever and a day with Vicky and I about, I start talking about one thing and she's like, you know how I feel about absolutes, and I'm like, yes, I do. Your opinion when it comes to absolutes, when it comes to certain things in life in general, in faith.
I didn't hear any of that.
Oh.
All right, next topic.
I didn't hear anything.
Let's see. Here's a comment here. I'm honored to have Shana.
Can you hear us at all?
I can hear you, but it's really staticky.
Oh, now we're
learned so much from her, and she's such an incredible friend who does not judge. That was a shout out. You can see that on the screen, hopefully.
Now we can't hear her. Oh God, we're back to square one.
Jody and I hang out a lot.
Okay, there we go.
Creeks and streams, looking for cool rocks and hanging out by the water. And she's my nature buddy.
There's another someone else, Melinda, said, I think fear is a huge factor that keeps people under that tent instead of really learning. And that is truly absolute, because oftentimes there are people, friends, and children brought by their parents that believe in the evangelical ways, and they're pushing, shoving all of that into those minds, young minds that are very impressionable, and also individuals that are lost and looking for something to hold on to faith wise. And they do for a little while. And it does become an absolute for them for a while. It did with me, it did with a lot of people. But until I started realizing when something paranormal happened to me at the age of 15, that absolute stopped. And it took something that drastic for me to say, hey, I have questions, Mom. Do you have the answers? Oh, no, it's a demon. I'd ask my aunt. Oh, no, it's a demon. And I was like, no, it wasn't. So I started turning to the library and learning more about supernatural things. And that's when I found the answers to my question of what had happened to me. Shana, what was the first supernatural thing that happened to you? How old were you and what was it? Can you hear us, Shana?
I can hear you whenever you say short sentences. Everything else is super static.
Oh boy. Okay, so
First paranormal experience. Was that short enough?
no, she was muted at the time. Your first paranormal experience. She didn't hear that either.
My
Okay,
first
why don't we go to a
experience?
What?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My first paranormal experience. Actually, um, quite a bit. I don't recall having any experiences as a child. Um, my sister had an imaginary friend. I did not. So my first experience didn't happen until 2004 ish, something like that.
Okay.
I was living in Alton, Illinois, which is very, very, very historic and haunted. I didn't really, I wasn't really into it, though it didn't affect me one way or another. Um, I was living in a house that had a little girl in it, and I had fallen asleep downstairs on the couch. I dozed off, and something woke me up, and I opened my eyes and saw a little girl standing there. Um, so I tried to rationalize it as, oh, I must be dreaming because, there's no kids in here. My kids were gone. And then the person that I was seeing at the time, his daughter was there, but this was not that girl. So it's like, hey, it's bedtime. I need to go to sleep. You know, so I need you to go to bed too. I didn't know. And then so I closed my eyes for a while and I counted to like 50. And then when I opened them back up, I saw her just walking away, just clearing the corner. And I didn't know if I need to go back to bed when I wake up. I'll deal with it then. So I woke up in the morning and his daughter came out into the kitchen and she looked exhausted, right? And so I was like, hey, did you not sleep well last night? She goes, well, I would have slept better if the little girl in my room wasn't playing with my stuff so loud. I was like, and she was just all matter of fact about it, didn't even question her existence or anything like that. To her, it was just, she was just there. Um, but then but that little girl, just kind of like opened up, like unlocked something in me. So then I started noticing more, not just in that house, but in other places that I was going, and I started seeing more things that I knew weren't really there, and I started hearing more things, and I started, you know, um, I call it, my spidey sense is tingling, whenever I feel something, coming in or coming at me or something like that. And so I started feeling more. And so I was like, maybe, and the shows on TV were real popular then. And I was just like, well, maybe I'll check them out, And then I was like, well, I need to get a recorder, maybe I need to get, start taking pictures of stuff. And I need to start getting out there and, actually looking for it. And so that's what happened. I mean, that's what started it. Um, but then the house ended up having a little more going on in it than I originally bargained for. And it was just a lot to deal with. There was so much happening just all the time. And I was afraid that eventually it would, my kids were starting to notice. And I wasn't exactly sure, you know, on how to move forward with that, because this is like the first time that I had gotten into it, and I didn't have all the answers. There were some things that were going on that were not good. Um, I wouldn't say that, one of the spirits in there was violent per se, towards me or towards my children, but ended up um, pushing the owner of the home down the stairs.
Wow.
Um, that made him a believer. I will say that made him a believer. Um, I came home and he was unconscious at the foot of the basement stairs, and ended up, having to call, 911 and get him to the hospital. And, after we got him checked in and stuff like that, I was like, what in the world? Did you just, he goes, no, something pushed me. And I was like, oh,
We're gonna have to cut to a short break, Shana, but we'll be right back after these few short words from our sponsors. So don't go anywhere, and that includes everyone in the chat. We will get to your questions and responses when we get back from our few short commercials. So stick around. And welcome back to Greetings from Beyond Radio, ladies and gentlemen. Um, we are joined with Shana Wankel, who is joining us. Did I get it right this time?
Yes.
I hope. Okay. All right. And we're discussing witchcraft, and I think we need to start veering more towards what it is that you practice per se, because you're an everyday person, but this is your faith, and this is what you um, adhere to. This is what you vibed with, and this is what you've stuck to. And you've been doing this for how many years, would you say?
Since 2010, maybe before that.
Okay.
Before that, it's been a while.
Okay. So I think it's safe to say something you already went through all the different religions, and what you came down to after a process of elimination is that this is what best worked for you. So respectfully, just so that we can start getting rid of this negativity that has attached itself to witchcraft over the years, so many years, and still to present day, what good do you do with your craft?
Repeat that.
What good do you do with your craft?
What is my craft?
Or what good do you do?
What do I do? Like I said, I have a lot of books and stuff like that. I've read them cover to cover, and I basically look at them as a guide, and that's what I usually recommend to other people that are thinking about dabbling because that's someone else's path.
Right.
The information is there, but like say you see a spell, oh, I want to do that spell. Well, don't do that spell exactly the way that that spell is done. It has to have something of your personal energy in it. Otherwise, it's theirs and not yours. And I think that if it has your personal energy, it's going to pack more of a. Um, I think it's going to be more effective. Um, and I do work with crystals, um, and I don't. There's recommendations. This crystal is good for this. This crystal is good for that. That's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody. Um, somebody might use, one crystal to make them feel safe. I might use a, totally different one. Um, I have like the regular players as like ones that I just have on for various reasons. But then, especially I've noticed that I have to necessarily even look at them where I'm feeling around. I feel something that gives me a little zing or whatever, that's the one I pick. If I don't feel it, I don't take it. Um, Same with, I have an altar too. It's got, it's a hot mess right now. It's got a lot of stuff on it. I probably need to have a second altar. And, whenever, uh, whenever the seasons change, whenever solstice rolls around, if there's different moon phases, I just kind of played around over the years. What I've noticed is when I am doing spells that are more geared around moon phases, I've noticed that there's a lot of energy going on during a full moon. So if I'm going to be manifesting something, that's the time that I would do it. Whatever I'm using, the words are, whatever the spell is, whatever the crystals are, there's whatever it is that I'm using, that and myself and my intent, everything, for me happens on a full moon. When the moon rolls around, out with the old, in with the new, that's when you release it. that's what's always worked for me. I used to just do everything on a full moon, and you know, just by I basically just wing it, and then I take advice from other people. I listen to other people that are also following the same path, and they talk about what works with them. Um, talk with people that you trust. You don't have to get it all out of a book. You don't have to, get it all, online. Talk to people, face to face that you trust that are, following a similar path, and let them give you advice, what works for them. That doesn't mean that you have to do exactly what they're doing. And like I said before, I honestly think you need to do, your own thing, put your own words, your own energy in it. But nobody has all the answers, so we're kind of just I'm just learning as I go. Really, I definitely don't have all the answers. I have a lot of advice, um, but I still learn. So I still take advice from people too, and I probably always will. Um, like now when I was a kid, that kind of stuff, didn't really, I was going to church then. That kind of stuff wouldn't have even been a blip on my radar when I was a kid. But they always, say, that when we're kids and, little girls have, put the little wreaths of flowers and they're making potions with sticks and mud and dirt and grass and stuff like that. That's whether we realize it or not, that's kind of where it starts. Young and somewhat innocent. And when times are a little, easier and stuff like that, and there's not so much, before you start getting older and you start becoming more impressionable, um, or as I usually call it, when programming usually starts happening, depending on who's around you. Um, so yeah, or we get in school, or I think that's where it starts. So could I have been doing this all my life? Probably the intent was there. I just didn't know that's what it was. But
So we,
if I think back, I like to be outside a lot then too.
all right. So we have a statement here. What are some good things about witchcraft, in your opinion? People always perceive witchcraft as bad, but truth be told, that it's used for good more than bad. Would you agree with that statement?
Um, I've noticed that there's been more of a movement, more people kind of wandering away from organized and becoming more spiritual and trying to get back to the basics and for to do good. I kind of feel like there's more good intent than bad intent lately. I think that's kind of becoming more of a thing. Um, that's what I'd like to think anyway. I'd like to think that it's used more for good than bad. There's always going to be someone out there doing it for the wrong reasons, but I feel like it's more for good reasons. That's at least how I perceive it, at least around me anyway.
So when you do spells, do you do them specifically for yourself or do people come to you for spells? Because I can tell you, if you got a romance one, I'm calling you later. So
Um, that sometimes people do. I do have people. I've noticed people that I wouldn't think would be into that or the paranormal or anything like that either. Kind of come to me on the down low, asking for advice or what would I recommend, you know. And I usually try to say, do something to make, this happen or this person stop doing that. And, I'm just always, you know, it's never a guarantee. Could I do a spell where it says, could you make, this person learn the error of their ways and maybe not behave like that, or maybe, let them see their behavior like they're looking in a mirror. I usually call that a mirror spell. Um, to where their actions and the negative effects it's causing, and maybe learn something from that. Because to me, even if something, happens to that person, you know, then for some people to learn a lesson, that's got to happen. You know, if I'm doing something bad to somebody and the same happens to me, like, oh, I can see that I'm doing something bad. I need to stop that. You know, so yeah, people do come to me, but sometimes if I see someone going through something, I might do, a little something, without them even knowing about it. Um, Always for the good of other people, you know, whenever I do spell work. It's never for selfish reasons. I have another story. Um, Back when I very first started getting into the paranormal with a team, um, one of those women is no longer alive. Um, but her and I and another girl got together, and we were kind of all kind of wandered down that path, and not really sure where we were going to go with it. But one of them was doing a health and wellness spell. Someone else was doing one for health, and I was doing one um, for financial reasons. Not trying to make myself rich, but just trying to do what I could. Maybe find a better job, to do something that wasn't just going to help me, but that was going to help, my kids. I had two small kids then. And so we went to a place that we used to investigate a lot. And the particular spell, and like I said, I was just starting out, so I really didn't know that much about it then. But my particular spell called for using an apple and putting cloves into the shape of a dollar sign. And, that was the main part of the spell. And then I, there, wrote the words out and did that. And we all did our spells. And the one place that was so active that it was just crazy that we had thought to do it there and not in nature. I will never to this day figure that out. But as soon as that spell was done, as soon as they were all done, it was like the building took a breath and exhaled. It was like someone was there with a mic and an amp, and it sounded like the building took a breath and let it out. And still kind of freaks me out to this day because we were all like, what was that? So then for my part of the spell, I had to the apple back to nature. Um, so then that following week, I didn't get a new job, but my boss got real sick and ended up having a brain tumor. So instead of working part time, I was working more hours than anybody, you know, more hours than anybody needed to have, And so then I kind of backed away, from spell work. I was like, oh my God, did I cause that? In my quest to find, help financially, did I cause that person to be sick? So for the longest time, I felt so much guilt you cannot even imagine. And then finally, someone had to tell me, you didn't cause that. Even if you hadn't done that, that's a way to go back and see what would have happened if I hadn't have done that. But it was just meant to happen that way. Um, and so that was the very first spell I'd ever done. Um, and I felt terrible about it. So then it made me kind of stop and think. So then after that, I make sure that any spell that I do, if I'm wanting to do something for that's going to help me but help others, I put, that I hope that no harm comes to anybody in the process. As the universe said supposed to happen, whenever it's supposed to happen, let what I'm doing have no part of that. And like I said, I had to personally make sure I was very specific about what I wanted, what I didn't want, because like I said, spell work, there's actions, there's consequences to that stuff. You have to be real careful about the stuff that you ask for, I think. My intent wasn't bad, but something bad happened, so going forward, like I said, from that, I just had to make real sure that the intent was not that harm come to somebody to give me what I was asking for. And then since then, anytime I've asked for, something like that, like I've done, with financial before, and then end up, winning money on some scratch off kits, just little things. Or, oh, I just, got my name in a drawing, so now I've got a $100 gift card or something like that. So just little stuff like that, but nothing bad happened to anybody. So the kind of the practicing that I do, I'm just really mindful about the words that I say. You have to be real mindful about the stuff that you say, because you never know who's listening.
That's a good lesson in life in general, is to watch what you say and be very careful with it.
I'm listening to your story and I'm here thinking to myself, well, who hasn't at one time or another made a mistake with their intents, not thinking of what they're sending out, who's it going to hurt in the process of you getting what you want? And I'm one of those. Uh-oh. Is that like a tornado thing?
I live right in the fire station.
Oh.
So it's going to be noisy for a little bit.
Sorry about that.
I
thought it was a tornado siren or something. I'm like, yeah, I think you should better get off. So, okay. So
I don't know if they were testing things or if there was a fire or tornado. I know there's some bad weather coming, so I don't know. I think it's done though.
One of the things that I thought of as you were sharing your story with us, I'm a firm believer in God, and I believe God created the universe and everything in it, including Earth, us, everything. But I think when I put out into the universe, and I always say, I ask that God and the universe make this happen for me, and it's always good things. It's never wishing anyone any harm. Good things for not only myself but my family and friends. And you learned a very valuable lesson. You actually learned the power of intent. Something that I've been learning is that the power that word has are our words. Just by the teachings I've been brought up with, being that if God created the heavens and the earth and everything in between and all that stuff by simply speaking, imagine if we were created in his image, what power we could actually wield ourselves. And I think witchcraft taps into the primal side of intent. And paganism has existed long before Christianity came along. Not too many people know that. And in fact, Christianity, being, a historic buff when it comes to anything like this, borrowed a lot of things from paganism that a lot of people don't realize. In fact, Catholicism got started because of Constantine, not the movie character, not the comic book character, the actual Constantine, whom ruled Rome. And at that time, Rome, and still to this very day in many ways, was all the people there believed in paganism. But when Constantine became a Christian, he said, how am I going to merge the two? So he created Catholicism, and he found a way to incorporate his newfound faith in Christianity with paganism, which is what we now call Catholicism. But ironically, a lot of people don't seem to understand that Christianity is people following the ways of Jesus. Jesus never intended this to be a religion, but you know, much like you could say of any other religion out there. But paganism has existed for a very, very, very long time. Um, and yes, and as Jen states, a lot of people lost their lives that day too. Yes, that is true when that happened, because I believe she stated it was the pagan tree that was cut down by the Catholics to be very spiteful, and a lot of wars have been waged back and forth, but more so on the Christian side against things that they don't understand. How do you feel moving forward? What intent would you, as a witch practitioner, as a human being, what intent would you put out there for the rest of the world when it comes to, can't we all just get along?
Can you summarize that last part?
In other words, what would if you were doing a spell right now, okay, and it was for this nation, this world, and it was, what would you infuse as an intent out into the universe to come back and help us as human beings to start getting along?
You mean, what kind of it out there to make society not such a hot anymore?
How would you come again? I'm sorry, you broke up.
If I were able to go back in time to the time when all of the fear happening and control and controlling the population and the lies and all of that, if I could go back, thing. I think a lot of it, a lot of people have been trained to be afraid of believing in anything other than, um, if I could do a spell today, it probably would take more than just me. I don't think I've got that kind of power, but it would just be for people that can start following their intuition, instincts, like not paying attention to what's going on in the media, not paying attention to. I think there's just too much going on. It's too cluttered. Um, the way it was then compared to the way it is now, I think it's kind of still the same. There's still a lot of control going on. I think that more people, um, because of being able to get online, I think it's almost worse. There's so much false information there now. People are just thirsty for something, thirsty for answers, and they'll believe just about anything to, you know. I can't tell if I answered the question right, because like I said, I only hear like the end, like a little bit of the middle and like a little bit of the end, and just the connection is not that good, I don't think. So I'm not sure if I answered what precisely you asked me.
My daughter, she has someone that she gets readings from all the time who is a practicing witch. Do you have any abilities like that? Do you give readings of any type?
Repeat that last part. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you give readings of any type? Do you have any ability?
I do tarot and oracle. Um, I do give readings. I don't do it professionally. I don't charge for it. I do personal readings for myself, just random. But if people who know that I do it, or if sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I feel they're talking, venting, and they're cut something, because you never know who's into it and who's not. And sometimes I'll just do a little, do like a spread and be like, if it's someone I know that's not into it, I'll do it and then just give my advice based on that and be like, I feel like this is probably the path that you should be on. This is what you should be thinking about. Because it could very well mean that, this will happen if you don't go down that path. Um, but I get messages almost daily from people that know that I read, um, wanting me to do it. I have not been reading tarot very long, probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years. I haven't been doing it for a super long time. Um, it's sometimes it's pretty eerie sometimes just how I'm not a shuffle and just start laying cards out. I like to spread stuff out, and then I just kind of touch the cards, and if something gets me, then that's the one I pull. So I'm not pulling in just from the top of the deck kind of person. I do tarot the same way I do my crystals. If I feel it out, if I don't feel anything, then that's not the one that I shut whenever I feel something for. So it's all feeling based, all intuition.
Yeah, the same advice when you were talking about how you choose crystals that you're going to use. I've given that advice for years for people who have said to me, okay, I go into a shop. How do I know this one's for this and this one's for that? I said, close your eyes and feel the energy and feel what
Yep.
direction they tell you to go in. And you're going to find the right one with that method alone. So I didn't say it at the time when you were talking about it, but I totally, totally agree. And that's what I've been telling people for years.
Yeah, there's sometimes that, I'll go in thinking, well, I probably need one or I might need that one. And then as I'm in passing, like sometimes it's just talking to somebody and I'll just be running my, fingers along and something will, give me a little buzz and I'll reach for that one and be like, yeah, I need that one, and then a lot of times it'll be one that I've never even heard of, and then kind of like, they always have information on what those crystals are typically used for, what their intent they're supposed to serve, what they're supposed to help with. And then a lot of the times I'll be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. It's kind of like when your body is lacking certain, like when you have cravings for stuff, like if you're dehydrated and you need to have drink, or if your body is lacking a certain vitamin or a mineral, you start craving that. To me, crystals are kind of like that sometimes. Like I don't even know that I need certain crystals in my life, but all of a sudden my body is just like lights up, and some people don't believe in, crystals and stuff like that, and that's fine. Um, not everybody is affected the same way. Not everybody is on the same wavelength. Some people might vibe higher than others. Some people, maybe they're not on the same frequency as the energy that's required to get into that type of thing. And in other times, I feel like it's, they don't want people to know, even if they do believe in something like that. Maybe they're surrounded by people, their circle is maybe made up of people that would think they were crazy, or, they might be, talk about. I don't personally care what people think of me. So if someone thinks I'm crazy, that's fine. That's on them. My life still goes on the same way that it's always been. So I think if you're going to practice, if you're going to have an alternate faith or anything, you have to stop caring about what people think about you. You have to, because you'll never know what you're truly capable of finding out who you are if you're always worried about what people are going to think of you. So if I had to give out any advice, it right there is if you're going to pursue whatever it is that you believe in or whatever you'd like to research what you might believe in, you have got to not care what people think about you.
I have a question. You were talking earlier where you guys had gotten together and you did that spell, in a paranormal location. Have you found, if you're getting together as a group, have you found sometimes that there may be somebody in your group that just doesn't feel like they should be part of this, of, the spell that you're doing or whatever your intent is? Have you ever like been in the middle of something and be like, oh, that energy is really off. Maybe we shouldn't do this?
Yeah, and that spell that I was talking about, the one that I did with the apple, um, none of us really had any, bad feelings about it. It wasn't until it was done. And then, like I said, where it sounded like, um, to this day, the two of the three of us that are still alive will tell, anybody that asks, whoever it was that was in that building with us. And it sounded feminine, really, the inhale and the exhale, but it was loud and you could feel it, just the energy just swell up and then, go back down. So none of us really started having any reservations or any, oh, we shouldn't have done that until that moment. um, because that was the first time that I didn't know what to think about that, so I didn't know what to expect. So then after that, we were kind of step back away from that. We're like, well, maybe we just won't do any spell work for a while. So anytime someone brought it up, we didn't get together as a group. It made me kind of wonder, then if it had been more powerful because we were there as a group. Whereas if one of us would have done that spell separate from everybody else, would it have still had the same impact?
Right. I know.
Um, yeah.
I work with a neutral shaman sometimes, and she had talked about the potential of, like, I'm more of a light shaman. I had another team member who was more of the darker shaman, and she was the neutral. And she always talked about the things that we could have done together because we had all the different elements there. We never had the opportunity to all get together and to try anything to balance out any energies and stuff like that. But I think it definitely makes a difference, whomever, if you're doing something as a group, the members of that group and the people that you're working with really affect the outcome a lot.
Yeah, I think there's more of a energy boost if everybody's on the same page. I ask, I've been in mixed company before, people that I know aren't, following even close to the same path that I'm following, but we like each other as people, and so we hang out. And then I always ask, it's like, look, that I do stuff like this. And sometimes on investigations, I will, you know, it depends on who I'm with. If I know it's going to make somebody uncomfortable, I won't do it. All that I ask is if someone says, oh, yeah, you do what you got to do, all that I ask is, don't throw any bad energy at it. If someone's on an investigation or someone's near me, and they're, Christian, Catholic, Lutheran, whatever they are, and they pray, fine. Um, I'm not exact. I don't go to church, and I don't really call what I do praying per se. But if somebody is with me, and that's what makes them feel good, then go for it. I'm not going to judge anybody for that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I think it may. Um,
Oh,
There
okay.
we go.
All right. I think to help with dispelling all the myths and misunderstandings in many ways, I think through our conversation, spellcasting is very much like prayer, anyways. You're putting intent into both, um, be it for health, be it for better monetary situation, be it to better your uh, personal relationship with family or relationship with intimacy or whatever, or even trying to help people. It's different strokes for different folks, and at the same time, you say tomato, I say tomato. To where a prayer to me is to my God, and with the intent of healing, with the intent of helping. And I think the same thing can be said with spellcasting because it's all in the intent in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I heard you say the word intent. Um, intent is everything.
Exactly. Okay. Well, um, I think the comparison that I've made there is in a way trying to bring people together. Um, like kind of like what Mark said. He thinks prayer is taking to is why I think he's trying to say talking to spirit slash God, and meditation is listening for the answer. But the same thing goes for what you do too. When you're listening to spirit, like much like when Vicky listens to spirit for whatever message there may be. Um, the same can be said for you when you're looking for that guidance as to what to do next, what your intent should be next, what's going on in your life. Wouldn't that be the same? It must be my baritone voice. I don't know.
Could you have Jen put that in chat?
I guess. Yeah.
It works pretty well when she's telling us a story. So maybe if she can hear you told a story about the spell that gave you a little, you know, little pause to think. What is your most feel good, best outcome spell that you ever participated in? Yeah, it doesn't help my voice.
I
Yeah, I can't hear anybody now.
okay. She can't hear us now. Uh I think that might be our unfortunate cue to end the show early for the first time, but there seems to be a lot of uh, interference going on. Um, and I don't know sign language, so I don't know what to do.
The only sign language I know you wouldn't want me to demonstrate.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd love to do that to me all day long. That being said, I think we may have to end the show because the interference has been getting worse and worse as the show goes on. um, no fault of anyone. That's just technology. But I do want to thank Shana, for being on the show. From what we could gather, Vicky, what were your impressions when it came to what we were able to gather when it came to, um, what we learned from Shana today?
Well, I think my impressions are it's things that Rich, you and I have talked about over and over again. Everybody needs to keep an open mind. They need to reach out and ask people what they believe in. And the more you do that, the more you learn. And all of our belief systems and the things we do and how we operate are basically, if you are open to talking to other people, we all have bits and pieces of all these different people that we've come in contact with and all these belief systems that we've come in contact with. And I love when I meet someone who challenges my beliefs. I love someone. I loved how peaceful she was when she was speaking about her belief system and what she practices. She wasn't
Mhm.
like trying to convince us or yelling or anything like that. She has such a peace about being who she is and practicing what she practices. And if everybody had that peace about themselves and didn't try to convince people of things, I think that's the key to a better world, myself.
Well, that's I agree with that 100%. And but you also have to understand that there's people that do things. Uh, I think Shana's back with us. If we can try and get her back in real quick before we have to sign off, because I think we got what 8 minutes before we have to sign off. Jen, you want to try, or is she still froze? Can you hear us now, Shana? No, I think we're still having technical difficulty with her on her end. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think we also have to take under consideration. It's not so much how people. Okay, for example, I'll use myself as an example here. Um, unless you really know me, I can come across very, very strongly. Um, I, I, I could talk softly and very, monotone. But ultimately, in the end, I have to start talking the way I do. But people may consider that to be very aggressive, and I may come across aggressive. It doesn't mean I am. It's just that I'm expressing myself the way I've always known. Now, if I really start screaming and hollering, trust me, you'll know about it. That is perception. Perception of how a person puts across what they believe, puts across the point they're trying to put across. And that in itself is the challenge. uh, sure, I could get one of those, you know, voice altering things that you put around your neck and make me sound less threatening. But ultimately, in the end, it's not. I think people will eventually get to that point if they really do stick to trying to understand what's happening or what that person is trying to convey. But it depends
If
on the
people
person.
listen to learn instead of listen to respond, that is the difference.
Right. Okay.
Because
Well,
you have to listen to learn. Because if all you're doing, if somebody's telling you about their belief system, and in their mind they're thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna counter with this, and this is how it's so wrong against this, and I'm gonna la 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 la." You're not absorbing. You're not listening to learn. You're listening to respond because you can't wait for your opportunity to respond. And I saw that quote on Facebook a couple years ago, and it resonated with me so loudly. And I realized how many times in my life I was listening to respond instead of listening to learn.
fair
And
enough. Fair
if
enough.
people did that more, think of all the knowledge you would obtain. Just because I ask somebody with a different belief system what you believe in. I'm not any more right than they are. That is so egocentric. And this is one of the problems I have with air quote organized religion. It's very egocentric to think that your religion is the only true religion. How can that be? With the millions and millions and millions of religions and belief systems we have out there, how can you possibly think that your little organized religion has it right and everybody else has it wrong? So once we
Well,
let go of thinking that we're correct all the time, that's when true learning comes.
I think the reason that there's a huge um, Grand Canyons difference nowadays is because everyone wants to believe that what they believe in is correct. And when their ego is put aside and they really do listen, that's when they start learning. I agree with you 100% there, or else we wouldn't be having the show, would we? To listen to the other side, which has been made the other side by society and social media and whatnot. Um, I can only believe that our show is a tool in which we can use to help people. We're not only learning from people we have as guests, but people that are also in the chat and what they chime in. There have been a few comments there where I've been like, yeah, that I don't agree with in the chat. But you know what? It's their right to believe. But our platform to also place an alternative way of thinking instead of the way they're thinking. Because ultimately, as you had stated before, there's no such thing as absolutes.
No, I
But
said there's
you're
few absolutes.
okay. But again, that's your absolute. And that being said, we have to also be very, very mindful of the fact that not all of us share the same views. We have to respect. Is that an absolute? No, I think it's common respect that we respect everyone's belief system, everyone's viewpoints. I'm not here to argue with anybody. I'm here to learn. Now, there have been a few things that I have learned from Shannon when we were able to understand what she was saying and agreed with. A few I didn't agree with, but at the same time, notice when I did pose the question, wouldn't you say that casting spell and prayer are pretty much the same thing? It's just we call them different things. It's intent being put out, right? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, and all belief systems have common denominators. Across the
Exactly.
board, you can find common denominators.
She's here saying, I have an altar. Well, guess what? Every time I've gone to a church, I see an altar. Uh, you know, she puts her intent out into the universe and everything. Don't priests and pastors and we do the same thing? That's why I was bringing the two together. This is not about, you know, this, that. It's a matter of this show is meant to bring things together. See how in common this and this are? They're two hands, but you put them together and you're praying. Or if you do this, it's the same thing. That's why I said earlier, you say tomato, I say tomato, it's the same thing. It's still a fruit. Yet people will always say, no, it's not. It's a vegetable. Go figure. Because it's been used in salad for so many years does not mean or constitute that it's a vegetable. It's a fruit. That's what they say. So I have to accept the fact that for years and years and years, tomatoes that have been thought to be vegetables is actually fruit. Go figure. But ultimately, that's what this show is all about. This show is for us to understand and come to an understanding so that we can, instead of being here, you're here, I'm here, bring it together and that's it. You know, it's not a matter of a pissing contest with any one particular religious group. I personally do not agree with religious order. It's man-made. I believe that we can learn from all faiths and bring it together. I've always said I'm very eclectic in my beliefs. I believe in not only the Christian faith, I believe in Native American faith. I believe in any faith that you throw at me. There is always wisdom to be picked from. It doesn't mean I have to subscribe to one particular one. I can subscribe to all of them and bring that wisdom. I think we all can stand to learn from different religious views. But at the same time, when you weaponize, and I stress the word weaponize, religion to make someone else or another group of people, I don't care if it's a religion or if it's LGBTQ, I don't care what it is. But when you use that to weaponize and bring someone or a group of people down, that is wrong. That, to me, is an absolute. And that you and I agree on, don't we?
My goal in the show is much like my goal as an educator. I never worried about whether my kids memorized the 50 states and their capitals. But if I asked them a question that made them think, that's the point. My point and what I want to happen with the show is that people come here to think. We present all
Isn't
kinds of
that what I
things
just said?
for them to come up with their own thoughts. It may not have to do anything with what we said or our guest said, but they came here and they started thinking.
Okay. Well, on that note, we will all see you next week. And as I always state, live life, don't let life live you, and peace be still.